Hello, dear friends. Have you ever sat at your kitchen table sipping your morning tea and wondered, where did the respect go? One moment your children are running to you with scraped knees and birthday cards drawn with crayons. The next, they're rolling their eyes, dismissing your advice, or worse, avoiding you altogether. If you felt the sting of being pushed aside after your child turned 18, you're not alone. Today, we're diving deep into why this happens, not to blame, but to understand. Because with understanding comes healing, and with healing comes hope. Let's explore this together, heart to heart. Have you ever felt like you woke up one morning and suddenly your child wasn't your child anymore? Maybe they turned 18, maybe they moved out, maybe they just started acting differently. They used to ask for your advice, your help, your opinion. Now it feels like they brush you off, correct you, or keep things to themselves. It's not just confusing, it can feel deeply hurtful. What's happening here is something most parents go through but rarely talk about. It's a shift in roles. For years, you were the center of their world, the teacher, protector, decision maker. You told them when to sleep, what to eat, how to behave, and they listened. For better or worse, they followed your lead. But once they reach adulthood, especially around 18 or 19, they're told by society, friends, and even media that it's time to take control of their own lives. They're expected to form their own opinions, make their own decisions, and sometimes challenge authority. And unfortunately, the authority they most often challenge first is yours. This change can feel like disrespect, but in many cases, it's simply growing pains. They're trying to find their voice. The challenge for us as parents is learning how to give them that space without stepping completely out of the picture. Think of it like this. For most of their lives, you've been in the driver's seat. You were steering the car, watching the road, making the choices. Now they want to drive, and that's okay. They need to learn. But here's the beautiful part. You're still in the car. You're still in their life. Your role just changes from driver to navigator. You're still needed, but in a quieter, more supportive way. Let's take a real-life example. A mother once told me about her son, who was always respectful until he went to college. Suddenly, he stopped calling. When she visited, he seemed annoyed by her presence. She felt devastated, like she'd lost him. But over time, she realized he wasn't being cruel. He was overwhelmed. New responsibilities, new relationships, and a need to prove he could make it on his own. Once she gave him space and started writing him gentle, no-pressure letters, he began to open up again. So, what can you do? Listen more than you lecture. Ask questions without judgment. Offer advice only when asked. Most of all, remind yourself, they're not rejecting you. They're trying to become them. And please be kind to yourself in this process. Shifting from parent to guide takes courage, patience, and love. But you've already proven you have those in abundance. The fact that you're here trying to understand shows just how deeply you care. Remember, your relationship with your child isn't over. It's just evolving. And like all good things, that evolution takes time. One of the biggest misunderstandings many parents face when their child turns 18 is the expectation that suddenly their child is fully grown up, emotionally, mentally, and socially. Legally, yes, they are adults. But emotionally? Well, that's often a different story. Turning 18 is like getting a new driver's license for life. It means you're allowed to make your own choices. But it doesn't mean you've mastered how to navigate every road. Many young adults are still figuring out who they are, what they want, and how to handle the pressures life throws at them. And that learning process can be messy. Sometimes this immaturity shows up as what feels like disrespect. You might notice your adult child snapping at you, ignoring your advice, or even outright dismissing your feelings. It can hurt, especially when you remember how much you've done for them over the years. It's easy to take it personally. But often what looks like disrespect is really a mask for something deeper: uncertainty, fear, or frustration. Imagine this. Your child just graduated high school, moved into a small apartment, and is juggling a part-time job with college classes. They're suddenly responsible for bills, meals, social life, and planning for a future that's still very unclear. That kind of pressure can be overwhelming, and it doesn't always come out politely. One dad shared with me how his daughter would sometimes snap at him over minor things, like suggesting a better way to manage her budget. At first, he was upset, but after a gentle conversation, he realized she felt scared and embarrassed. She wanted to do well but didn't know where to start. Her disrespect was really a way to protect herself from feeling vulnerable. Psychologists tell us that emotional maturity is a journey, not a switch. It can take years, sometimes well into a person's late 20s or even 30s, to fully develop the skills to manage emotions, communicate respectfully, and make thoughtful decisions. So it's normal and expected that your 18-year-old might still act out or push boundaries. This doesn't mean you have to accept rude behavior or tolerate hurtful words. Boundaries are important, no matter your child's age. But understanding what might be behind those behaviors can help you respond with patience instead of frustration. One helpful tip is to gently ask, "What's really going on?" instead of reacting to the tone or words. Sometimes simply naming the stress or fear can open the door to a calmer, more honest conversation. And don't forget to care for yourself too. Feeling hurt when your child seems disrespectful is natural. Allow yourself to feel those emotions, but don't let them close your heart. Remember, they're learning just like you did when you were their age. Maybe in your own ways, you weren't always the perfect adult either. In time, as your child gains more experience and confidence, their respect for you often grows. What seems like rebellion today may become appreciation tomorrow, once they recognize the wisdom behind your love and support. So hold on to hope. Respect doesn't always come immediately after 18, but with kindness, understanding, and patience, it often comes in time. One of the hardest feelings for a parent is the sense of being rejected by their adult child. It can feel like a sharp, unexpected pain when suddenly your son or daughter starts pulling away, less phone calls, fewer visits, or even curt answers when you do talk. It's easy to think, did I do something wrong? Do they not love me anymore? But often, what we interpret as rejection is actually something very different, a natural and necessary step toward independence. When young people become adults, they begin to build their own identities separate from their families. This process means carving out personal space, emotionally, physically, and socially. It doesn't mean they love you any less. In fact, it's often the opposite. Creating healthy boundaries is a way for them to understand who they are and where you fit in their life as an adult, not just as a child. Think of it like this. Your child has lived inside your home, inside your daily life, for years. Then one day, they decide to paint a new picture, one with different colors, different shapes. That picture needs room to breathe. If you crowd it too much with your expectations or your presence, it might feel smothered. A mother shared how her daughter, after turning 18, stopped calling as often and seemed distant during family gatherings. It hurt deeply. But over time, she understood that her daughter wasn't rejecting her. She was simply trying to figure out who she was away from the family spotlight, to stand on her own feet. Once the mother gave her daughter that space, their relationship became less tense and more honest. This is a critical point. Independence doesn't mean pushing parents away forever. It means trying on a new role, sometimes awkwardly, until they find their balance. It's important for parents to honor this process with patience and trust. What can you do when your child seems distant? Start by reminding yourself it's not personal. Their need for space is part of their growth. Respect their choices, even if you don't fully understand them. Try saying things like, "I'm here when you need me," without pressure or expectation. Also, look for small ways to stay connected without overwhelming them. A thoughtful message, a shared hobby, or an invitation to coffee can open doors without forcing closeness. Psychologists say that healthy relationships between parents and adult children depend on mutual respect for boundaries. It's like tending a garden. You don't hold the plants too tight, but you also don't leave them without care. The right balance helps the relationship thrive. Remember, this phase can feel lonely for parents, but it's a sign your child is becoming confident and capable. Honoring their independence now builds a foundation for a deeper, more respectful relationship in the future. And when those moments come, when your adult child chooses to share their life with you, asks for advice, or just wants to spend time together, cherish them. They are gifts of trust that have grown from giving space. In the end, independence is not rejection. It's love in a new form. By understanding this, you'll feel less hurt and more hopeful about the future of your relationship. One of the reasons parents sometimes feel disconnected from their adult children is because the way young people communicate today is very different from what we're used to. It's not just the words they use, it's the whole style, the tone, even the medium. Understanding the shift can help ease frustrations and build bridges instead of walls. For many of us, conversations were face-to-face, with pauses to think and time to digest what was said. But younger generations grew up texting, messaging, using emojis, GIFs, and even memes to express feelings. A simple "okay" text might feel cold or dismissive to a parent, but for them, it can be just a quick way of saying, "I saw your message." Sometimes what sounds like disrespect is really a different way of expressing emotions. For example, sarcasm or teasing might be their way of showing affection or joking around, even if it doesn't feel that way to us. They might say things that feel blunt or too casual, because that's how they interact with friends, informal and quick. A father once shared how his son would answer his calls with short, sometimes grumpy replies, and it made him feel shut out. After talking honestly, he learned his son was not angry at him, but simply anxious or distracted. The son also admitted he didn't realize how his tone came across. Just knowing this helped the father soften his feelings and respond more gently. Another big change is the way young adults value boundaries around communication. They might want to limit the times they answer calls or respond to messages to protect their mental health or focus on work or studies. This can feel like rejection if we don't understand the reason behind it. To navigate this, try asking your adult child how they prefer to communicate. Maybe they like texting during the day but phone calls in the evening. Maybe they need time to respond without feeling pressured. These small adjustments show respect for their style and can improve your connection. Psychologically, communication is not just about words but about feeling heard and safe. When we get frustrated or hurt by their style, it can cause tension. Instead, if we try to listen without judgment and ask gentle questions like, "What's going on?" or "Can you tell me more?" it can open up deeper conversations. It's also helpful to share your feelings calmly. For instance, saying, "Sometimes I feel worried when I don't hear from you for a while," invites empathy without blame. When we express our feelings openly and kindly, adult children are often more willing to respond with understanding. Remember, this is a learning curve for both of you. They're learning how to express themselves as adults, and you're learning how to interpret their new language of communication. Finally, patience is key. Try to focus on the message behind the style. Your child still wants your love and connection, even if the way they show it looks different from what you expect. Embracing these changes with curiosity, instead of criticism, can transform how you relate. What once felt like a communication barrier can become a bridge leading to a stronger, more respectful relationship. Our adult children today face challenges and pressures that are very different from what many of us experienced when we were young. Understanding this can help us be more patient and compassionate when they seem distant, irritable, or even disrespectful. Today's world moves fast. Jobs can be uncertain, education costs are high, and the pressure to succeed feels overwhelming. Many young adults carry heavy burdens like student debt, unstable work, and the constant comparison to others on social media. It's no wonder some of them seem stressed or withdrawn. Imagine your child just landed a new job but worries if it's enough to pay the bills. Or maybe they're trying to finish college while working long hours, leaving little time or energy to call home or visit. Sometimes they might seem short-tempered or uninterested, but underneath, they could be exhausted and anxious. I spoke with a woman whose son had always been warm and talkative. After college, he started acting cold, avoiding calls and getting defensive over small things. She felt hurt and confused. When she gently asked him how he was doing, he opened up about feeling overwhelmed by his workload and the pressure to figure everything out right away. He wasn't disrespecting her. He was scared. Psychologists explain that stress and anxiety can affect how people communicate. When someone is under pressure, their patience wears thin, and they might snap or seem less respectful. Not because they want to hurt you, but because their energy is depleted. What can you do as a parent? First, remind yourself it's not about you. Their struggles are real and can impact their behavior. Offer support without judgment. Sometimes just saying, "I'm here if you want to talk," can be a lifeline. Encouraging open conversations about their feelings can help too. But be gentle. If they're not ready to talk, let them know you understand and will be there when they're ready. Pushing too hard might make them pull away further. Another practical tip is to check in with kindness, maybe with a simple message like, "Thinking of you today," or sharing something light and positive. These little touches can remind them they're loved without adding pressure. And take care of yourself too. Supporting a stressed adult child can be draining. Seek out your own support network, friends, groups, or even professionals who understand what you're going through. Remember, resilience doesn't mean never struggling. It means learning to keep going despite the challenges. Your child is learning this too, and your patience and love are part of their strength. In time, as they manage their pressures and build confidence, their relationships often improve. What feels like distance now can become deeper connection later. So when your child seems distant or difficult, try to see the bigger picture. Their behavior might be a cry for help or simply a sign of the heavy load they carry. Your understanding and steady support can make all the difference. One of the most important, yet sometimes overlooked, parts of maintaining a respectful relationship with adult children is setting healthy boundaries. It's a delicate balance, giving your child freedom and space to grow while also maintaining your own needs and dignity as a parent. When children become adults, the dynamic changes. They are no longer little kids who need constant guidance. They want respect for their choices and independence. At the same time, parents need to protect their own emotional well-being. Without clear boundaries, confusion and frustration can build up on both sides. Sometimes parents feel tempted to step in too much, checking up too often, offering advice unasked, or reacting strongly when their child makes decisions they don't agree with. This can lead to tension, with the child pushing back or seeming disrespectful to create space. On the other hand, some parents withdraw completely, afraid of being rejected or pushing their child away. This can leave both feeling disconnected and lonely. Healthy boundaries create a framework where respect can flourish. For example, agreeing on how often to communicate can prevent misunderstandings. Some families decide to have weekly calls. Others check in more casually. The key is that both sides feel comfortable and respected. Boundaries also mean recognizing when to say no to requests that are unreasonable or hurtful. It's okay to protect your time, your home, and your emotions. Saying no gently but firmly teaches adult children that respect goes both ways. Psychologists say that boundaries help build trust. When children know their parents won't overstep, they feel safer and more willing to open up. Boundaries show that love isn't about control, but about respect for each other's needs. Let's consider a real-life example. A woman told me she used to feel hurt when her adult son ignored her calls or canceled visits last minute. At first, she would call repeatedly, which made him feel pressured and distant. After a heartfelt conversation, they agreed on setting a quiet time when calls wouldn't be made and to text first before visiting. This small change reduced tension and actually brought them closer. If you're wondering how to start setting boundaries, try this. Reflect on what you need emotionally and physically to feel respected. Then, gently communicate those needs. For example, you might say, "I love spending time with you, but I also need to have some quiet evenings to rest." This honesty invites understanding. Remember, setting boundaries is not about building walls. It's about creating clear, kind guidelines that protect your relationship and keep it healthy. Boundaries also teach your adult child important life skills about respecting others, which they will carry into their own relationships. Be patient with yourself as you navigate this. It can feel awkward at first to say no or to ask for space. But with practice, boundaries become a natural part of your relationship, a sign of mutual respect and care. Ultimately, boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about allowing love and respect to flow freely in a way that feels safe for everyone. Sometimes, the tension and feelings of disrespect between parents and their adult children come from unresolved issues in the past. Hurts that were never fully talked about or forgiven can linger, creating invisible walls that make it harder for respect and love to flow freely. It's important to remember that no family is perfect. Every parent has made mistakes, times when they were too strict, too busy, or didn't understand their child's needs. And every child has also made choices that may have caused pain. These past wounds don't have to define your relationship forever, but they do need attention and care to heal. When your adult child seems disrespectful, ask yourself, could this be connected to something that was never talked through? Maybe there was a harsh word said in anger, a broken promise, or a moment of feeling unheard. Sometimes what looks like defiance is really a protective shield to avoid old pain. Healing these wounds begins with courage and honesty. It might feel scary to bring up difficult topics, but gentle conversations can open the door to understanding. You might say, I've been thinking about some things from the past, and I want to make sure we're okay. Is there something you want to share with me? This invitation shows humility and a willingness to listen, which can soften even the hardest hearts. It also shows your child that you respect their feelings and are ready to grow alongside them. Psychologists emphasize the power of forgiveness, not just forgiving the other person, but also forgiving yourself. Holding on to guilt or resentment keeps relationships stuck in the past. When we forgive, we free ourselves and open space for new, healthier connections. A father shared with me how he and his daughter hadn't spoken much after a big argument during her teenage years. Years later, he reached out with a simple message apologizing for his part in that fight. To his surprise, she replied warmly, and over time, they rebuilt their relationship stronger than before. Remember, healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of small steps, kind words, listening without judgment, and showing consistent care. Patience is key. Sometimes it helps to seek outside support. Family counselors or therapists can provide a safe space for difficult conversations and guide both of you toward healing. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Also, be gentle with yourself and your child as you navigate this journey. The goal isn't perfection but connection. Even small gestures of kindness and understanding can gradually restore respect and warmth. Ultimately, healing past wounds allows love to grow again in a new way, deeper, more honest, and more resilient. It transforms the relationship from one burdened by old hurts to one filled with hope and renewed respect. So if you're feeling hurt or distant from your adult child, remember, it's never too late to start healing. The path may be challenging, but the reward, a respectful, loving relationship, is worth every step. One of the most powerful ways to teach respect is by showing it, even when it's hard. As parents, we've spent so many years guiding, correcting, and leading our children that it can be difficult to step back and see them as equals. But once our children become adults, the relationship needs to evolve into one of mutual respect, not authority. When we speak to our adult children with kindness, when we really listen to their thoughts and feelings without interrupting or judging, we are modeling the kind of respect we hope to receive in return. It may not always be returned right away, but over time, these small acts build trust and understanding. Think of it like planting a garden. Respect is the seed, and your example is the water. If you consistently water that seed, through patience, listening, and gentle honesty, it will grow, even if it starts slowly. Sometimes parents fall into the habit of giving constant advice or correcting their children, even when it's not asked for. While that comes from a place of care, it can feel patronizing to an adult child who is trying to stand on their own. Instead of always instructing, try asking, "What do you think?" Or "How can I support you?" This shift in language shows that you see them as capable and thoughtful. A woman once told me that her adult son rarely visited and was often short with her. Instead of getting upset, she started making small changes in how she interacted with him. She stopped offering advice unless he asked. She began expressing appreciation for his efforts, even little things like calling once a week. Slowly, he opened up more, started stopping by more often, and even asked her for help when he needed guidance. It all began when she chose to treat him not as a child, but as a fellow adult. Psychologists say that when people feel respected, they are more open to giving respect back. It's a mirror effect. What we show is often what we receive. Even if your adult child is being difficult, your steady example of calm and respect can eventually influence their behavior. That doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It's okay to set boundaries and say, "I don't feel comfortable being spoken to that way," but do it calmly, without harsh words. Respect doesn't mean being passive. It means being strong in a peaceful way. Finally, remember that your child is still growing just like you. No one is finished learning at 18 or 60. By modeling respect, you show them how to handle conflict, how to maintain relationships, and how to treat others with dignity. It may take time, but those seeds you plant now can bloom into a stronger, more loving relationship in the years to come. When your child sees you treating them with respect, even during hard moments, they learn what true maturity looks like, and that lesson stays with them forever.